Hi, welcome to Voices That Move Us, Leaders, Legacy, and the Law, a podcast celebrating 20 years of the Washington Leadership Institute, a visionary partnership between the Washington State Bar Association and the University of Washington School of Law. In each episode, we sit down with alumni of this program to explore how WLI has shaped their journeys and how they, in turn, are shaping the legal profession, their communities, and the future of leadership. I'm your host, Yohana Valdez. Today, I'm honored to welcome Sarah Pendleton, a 2022 WLI graduate and the clerk of the Washington Supreme Court. Sarah has built a distinguished career in public service and judicial administration, working at the highest levels of state government. As the Supreme Court clerk, she ensures the smooth operation of Washington's highest court, a role that combines precision, legal acumen, and institutional leadership. Her path through WLI and the insights she brings from it offer a powerful reflection on what it means to lead with purpose and principle. Welcome, Sarah. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. That was way too nice, but I thank you for that introduction.
She's modest as well. So wonderful. Let's go ahead and jump into our questions. And I'd love to start first by learning about your WLI experience. Can I ask what drew you to apply to the Washington Leadership Institute?
Yeah, so when I started as the deputy clerk in 2021 at the Supreme Court, the clerk of the court at the time, Erin Lennon, had a few friends who had participated in the program, and she thought that I would be a good candidate. She really encouraged me to apply. Uh, when I came out of law school, especially because I didn't finish law school at Seattle U, I was out of the country. I didn't have a lot of connection, a lot of connections in the state, especially in the legal community. So, I thought it was a great opportunity to join WLI and get to meet some of the leaders in the state in the legal field. And I also came from state government. And oftentimes, when you're in state government and you're in an agency, especially one like DSHS, where I was, it is very insulated. You don't get to meet a lot of attorneys doing other things besides what you're doing. And so I knew a lot of procurement and contracting professionals, but that was about it. So I would say those are the main reasons why I decided to pursue it and apply. And I'm glad that I did.
That's great. Um, can you share how WLI shaped your understanding of leadership, especially given that you're a woman of color in the legal profession?
Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard this. It's kind of a Justice you saying. Justice you would always say to us, you belong. And I think it's the belonging. Uh, that's really what it did for me was made me feel like I was worthy of being in the room. I think as a woman, and a woman of color, that's just kind of the norm. You feel imposter syndrome. You feel like, why am I in this position? How did I get so lucky? And at least for me, I would question, like, am I the right person? Do I deserve this? Did I work hard enough to get here? And I wouldn't say that ever goes away, but I think WLI really instilled in me this real belief that I took in and internalized that I do belong and I do deserve to be in the places where I am. So I think that was the biggest impact for me of the program.
That is so interesting to me, Sarah, because as I was drafting questions to ask you, of course, I asked myself that. What have I gained so far in these 7 months? And that was actually the answer that I came to as well. The sense of belonging that
That's
you
awesome.
that you deserve to be at the table. So I'm really happy to hear that reflected back from you because that kind of further validates what my own experience. Thank you for sharing
Absolutely.
that. You've worked in high-level judicial and policy spaces. I'm wondering if WLI, the confidence that you're talking about, um, gaining from WLI. I don't know if you would call it a confidence, but that sense of belonging, if that has carried on in those types of spaces as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it goes back to this you belong. Of course, there are still days where I, see my name on an opinion and it says clerk of the court and I'm like, "What? That's not me." And I wonder how I got here and whether people look at me and think that I deserve it or I'm too young or I'm too Asian or I'm too whatever I am. Uh but I think it did. It does. It really I didn't expect it to give you this sense of belonging, but it really does. It makes you feel like yeah, you've earned what you have. It's not just given to you, which I think a lot of people assume, or as maybe little girls, we are supposed to learn to be humble and not think you deserve it and to go, melt into the background. But I think so. I think the exercise that we did and I don't know if you still do this, but with Nick Brown, uh, the current AG, he came in and did an exercise with us where we had to do a presentation in front of everyone about ourselves. And, that's like the hardest thing to do is talk about yourself. And it was really impactful for me. It really made me feel like I could step into a room and capture other people's attention and talk about myself, which is not something we're inclined to do generally, I think, um, as minority women. But it gave me that confidence. The other thing it gave me, I think, that a lot of these really impactful leaders, these people who are established in the legal community, they're part of this program and they're there with the intention of helping you. Like they are there purely to help you move through this culture, this um, you know, sphere. And I think having them be the cheerleaders to build you up and say, I support you, I don't think I felt that community. I think if I didn't go through the program and I applied to be the clerk, I would have more doubts about myself. But going through the program and creating these relationships with Justice Yu and with attorneys who practice in this court and them saying, you're a great candidate for this role and we think you'd do a great job in this position did so much for me in giving me the confidence to be able to walk in a room and know that I deserve to be in this job. So it was a long-winded answer, but that would be my response.
That's okay. That's what we're here for. We're here for those for those kinds of answers. I'm curious about that assignment from not then the Attorney General.
Yeah.
What was the assignment? You had to speak about yourselves. Were you promoting yourselves? Were you giving kind of your bio, or what was the
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember that it had to do with us talking about ourselves in a short amount of time and making it, he at that time he was talking about kind of politicians and how they make um these speeches that are concise and persuasive. And it was an exercise like that where we each got up and had a limited amount of time to present. And but to be honest, I don't remember the
sounds
subject.
like it sounds like well it sounds like the subject was you and the purpose was maybe to justify your place at the table or to sell yourself
Yeah.
as being the person who deserves to be in this space. That's wonderful. So we're talking about you being the clerk of the court of the Supreme Court of the state of Washington. And I'm wondering for those listeners who might not fully understand the scope of your job, could you share with us what your role entails and why it's important?
Sure. I don't think a lot of people know what the clerk of a court does generally, but the clerk of the Supreme Court is kind of a different beast. So I will try to summarize it. I think I could use the whole 30 minutes to talk about all the things, but uh, in a nutshell, we are the air traffic control of the court. So when filing comes in, we are the first face, the first voice, the first letter that a party receives in a case. So I think a lot about us being, you know, what people take away from the court experience. We have to open the door for them and welcome them in and understand what they're asking for and translate it into how the court does procedure. And then getting it through the court in the right way in front of the right people. Does it go to the commissioner's office? Does it go to the justices? Does it go to five of them or all of them? And so a lot of my job at the front end is to do a triage of and determining where does a filing go? What type of case is this? What court is it coming from? We have 20 plus types of cases here at the court. So a lot of my time is spent doing an analysis of what it is. And, we have pro se folks that come to the court. They've only had experience at the lower court. And so they file things that are filed at a lower court. And so we have to figure out what is this most similar to type of thing. We're myself and my deputy clerk are considered quasi judicial officers, so we do have to comply with the Code of Judicial Conduct, and we enter rulings on motions, mostly administrative motions that are filed by parties that, it would take way too long to refer those to the court, or the court is very busy writing opinions and things like that. So things like motions for extensions of time, motions to file over length, sometimes to consolidate cases. Those are all on our plate, and we rule on those. Uh, and then we correspond. So per day, I probably write a good 30 letters to parties, telling them what the next step in a case is. So I will give them, I try to do plain language letters that explain to them what the next steps are, what they need to file next, and then I'll set due dates based on the procedure of the court. Uh, we also do all the orders and we docket all the cases. So there are case managers or docket clerks, as they're known in other courts here in our office, and they review every filing to make sure it's in compliance with the rules. They docket and set them so that parties can see what is said and what is due. And then we correspond with the commissioner's office, with the chambers that are assigned a case, all of those things to make sure all the things that need to be done are done. So we're the air traffic control. The other thing that we do that is unique, I think there's only a couple states that do this, is the clerk's office also manages the admissions process for the WSBA, Washington State Bar. So I sign every admission certificate for new attorneys, for limited licenses, limited practitioners, Rule 9 interns, in-house counsel, foreign law consultants. I review and process all of those. And then I'm the record keeper for the state of all of the admission files for attorneys. And so we have a vault here where I'm required to maintain all of the records, and if the bar actually doesn't have them anymore once you're admitted, and so the only place you can get them is here. So we're the keeper of the files as well. So a little bit of everything, quasi-judicial, record holders, letter, composers, and things like that. So that's what we do. Uh, and
Well,
yeah.
and the second part of that question had to do with why does it matter? And I think that you touched on this a bit. as far, I was just thinking about your issues that I see from your career that are important to you are access to justice. And so I think you've touched on this with like the letter writing aspect, like communicating with parties, especially with pro se parties. Are there other areas in which you get to really impact access to justice, do you think, through this
Oh,
role?
yes, absolutely. Our office manages the rulemaking process and issuing the orders. And so I'm pretty well acquainted with what the rule process looks like. And so our office has headed up a lot of proposed changes to the rules of appellate procedure to make them more understandable. When lawyers can't understand how to do something, there's a problem. There's also a lack of materials or help for at the appellate level. There are no guidebooks. There are very few attorneys who are really well acquainted with the appellate courts. And it is hard to navigate. I can't even imagine navigating it as a pro se individual. And I can't, I don't know how people do it when they are limited English proficiency. Language access is something that's really important to me. Myself and the clerk that was here before I took over, we drafted the first Washington State Appellate Access Plan. Um, and it was uh, granted 9-0 by the court and adopted. And now they're in the process of working with the Language Access Commission to create a subcommittee that's going to be leading the effort in implementing new processes to make the appellate courts more accessible in terms of language. So that's a big part of it. We really get to be at the table. When we talk about policies, our court not only oversees our court internally, but we are the head of the judicial branch. The Chief Justice is the head of the judicial branch. So I feel like I have a, an obligation to speak up and use my voice where I can make an impact. And this court doesn't accept a lot of cases. So generally, people are going to feel disappointed. And so we have to be kicking the door open for them, giving them all the information that they need to be able to pursue their case here, and making them feel validated and heard, even when it likely won't end up, a case won't end up the way they want it. But if at the end of the day they feel heard and they feel like it was a just, fair, accessible process, you're making a huge impact. You're making people feel like they can come here and it's a place where they can air their grievances or something bad happened to them and they can get some type of at least be heard, even if it doesn't get taken up by the court. So I think it's a really important place. We are the face of the court.
Absolutely. Let me ask you about going back to your leadership journey then. I'm thinking about because this podcast is dealing with legacy, I wonder how you define legacy in your own leadership journey. And then the second part to that, if I may, is what are you most proud of so far? You've already shared a few nuggets of things to be really proud of, which has to do with access to justice in the most um, I think not elementary, but like the one of the m most initial places, which is just being able to understand what the process is, and then as a secondary step to that, uh, through actual, having things be accessible not only in English but in other languages. So, are there
Yeah.
other are there other moments? There surely must be that you're proud of.
Yeah, I think in terms of legacy, it is really important to me that I welcome people in. I think uh, as an attorney, your initial reaction when a young person asks you about being a lawyer is like, oh, it's really hard. Like law school's awful. And I feel like it puts people off, but I feel like the people that I've met where I feel viscerally like these people are going to make a difference in the world were the people in my cohort at WLI. And that everybody's in a different area. Everyone's interested in different things. Everyone walked a different path to get there, but you can just tell that they're going to make an impact. So I want to open that up. I want it to feel accessible. I want people whose parents didn't go to law school, mine didn't, uh, and grandparents aren't, judges or already attorneys, and I want them to feel like it's something that they can do and that they belong. And so I think that's a big part of what the legacy I want to leave. So when I have an opportunity to talk to young attorneys, I try to do it as much as possible. We just talked with the ARC program, the entering 1Ls. They were 3 days into law school and came to the court last week. And myself, Justice Mungia, and the Chief Justice, as well as one of the law clerks, Justin Lowe, were able to meet with them and really talk to them real about what it's like and that they belong there. And we talked a lot about like, what do you do when people question you about being there or challenge whether or not you deserve to be there or say something that's passive aggressive about you being in the ARC program or you, you know, not having taken the traditional route. And we talked a lot about that. That is something that's really important to me. I try to meet with, if I get an opportunity to meet with the PAGE program at the legislature, uh, and they come over, I try to be honest and talk to them about my experience there. I think honesty and openness and welcomingness to the new generation is so important. And I hope that's the legacy that I leave is just showing them that it's that you deserve to be there. Um, what I'm most proud of, I'll talk about what I'm most proud of myself for, and then I'll talk about my job because that's easy, that's something on your resume. I would say, for me, I'm most proud of the fact that I never let anything pigeonhole me. And I'm going to be totally blatantly, like totally honest in this conversation. When I came to this court, I knew nothing about the courts. I'd never practiced in the court. I knew nothing about the rules of appellate procedure. I wasn't quite sure about what the structure of the court system was in the state. And but it was really interesting. And I read the description and I saw myself in it. Even though my job wasn't directly applicable, I knew that there were things in my last job that could, maybe not directly, but at least kind of uh, fill what they're looking for as a deputy clerk. And really, what the clerk at the time, and I could read it in the posting, wanted was someone who had experience leading teams, who was passionate about social justice, who understood like how race affects how people have access to the courts. And that really showed through in her job description. It wasn't just like a hoity-toity iron, ivory tower type of thing. And she wasn't that type of clerk. So I read it. I read that. And so I realized how important it is how you write your job descriptions because you invite different people to the table rather than just someone who's done what you're supposed to do, been at the court for a long time. Not saying that those people are not qualified. They're extremely qualified. I would say I was probably the least qualified in terms of direct experience. But I was in procurement and contracting for 7 years in a state agency. Never been to court. I took a shot. I called a person who knew what the clerk's office did, got an idea of really what are the nuts and bolts of what they do and how can my skills that I developed in this other area of law, how can those translate? And I wrote my application that way. and I got an interview. And my family members, I kid you not, were like, there's no way they're going to interview you. There's no way. But good for you. Like, apply. It looks, but even my parents were like, there's no way. And I got a call and I got an interview, and my best friends that are lawyers were like, you've been in procurement. And of course they were supportive, but they were like, don't be sad. They're probably being nice. You got an interview. And I got the job the next day. And here I am 4 years in, and I'm now the clerk of the court. And I love it. Like, this is what I was meant to do. But if you let the system dictate where you go and keep you from changing course when you realize you're not on the right course, like, you're screwing yourself. I think that it's so important. So I hope to leave that message as maybe part of my legacy, and it is what I'm most proud of for my own life. And then at the court, I think the language access plan is my proudest. I'm also really proud of like internal things. My team is super strong. I feel like I give an opportunity to the women who work in this office. It's all women except for the deputy clerk. Um, to g give me their honest feedback about how they think systems are working. None of them are attorneys, but some of them have proposed the rule changes. They know the cases inside and out, and I'm really proud of the team that we've built and that everyone feels empowered and capable of um, improving the process. And they all come from different walks of life, uh, different levels of education. And it's really amazing. So that internally, and then the language access plan is hugely important to me. I speak French and Japanese, um, and I know what it feels like to live in another country and feel completely powerless because you don't know how things work. There's all this bureaucracy, and then you can't even read the rule because the rule is so convoluted. So, uh, I really hope to continue expanding it. I hope to be invited to be on the subcommittee so that I can make changes from inside. And yeah, I would say that's what I'm most proud of.
Sarah, I wasn't expecting to get teary-eyed from an answer. I just really appreciate that, your honesty, about how little you felt like you could get, well, I'm sorry, you didn't maybe feel like you couldn't get the job, but
Yeah.
you admitted that you didn't know anything about it
Yep.
like directly, but you could look based on the job description and think about how were your skills and your knowledge and your passions transferable to this role. And so it sounds like curiosity, tenacity, and a belief in yourself were like the main drivers for getting you to where you are today in that role.
Absolutely. But at the whole time, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, they're not going to hire me. But sometimes you just got to throw it at the wall and see if it sticks.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Okay, so we're just gonna wind ourselves down
Okay.
here, thinking about the past and thinking about the future. I'm curious, looking back at your younger self, maybe before law school even, um, what would you tell yourself if you could go back to that version of you? What
Mhm.
would you tell pre-law school Sarah about the path ahead?
So many things. Um, I think law school is designed, it's like a historic, historical, it's like this is the way it's done. I mean, that's why law schools exist, right? It's like this system you're supposed to go through and you're supposed to apply for the summer externships. and you're supposed to do all these things. And then, you know, law firm life, there's just like a algorithm that they teach you that you're supposed to learn. And I wish I didn't care so much about that when I was in law school. I think I second guessed a lot of the decisions I made, or I didn't do the things because I thought I wasn't good enough. Uh, so I wish I could have shown myself a glimpse of what my future me would have looked like to give myself more confidence. But I was like the epitome of imposter syndrome. I just did not think I belonged in the room. Everyone seemed smarter than me. Uh, Never got a Cali in a class. I did okay, you know, I did good enough, but I wasn't the top of the class. Uh, and I kind of prioritized going abroad, doing an externship at the UN Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, really leaning into my French and doing that. Studied French for a summer. I didn't do the traditional route, and I'd pat myself on the back for that because I think it got me to where I am. Uh, what I
Do you
would
think that Sarah
criticize, yeah,
would she have believed that
no,
that you would end
no,
up in this role?
no,
Yeah.
um, probably not. But I also thought it was, you know, when you go to law school, you think it's like all about the money, right? You want to go and make that money. I realized really quickly that it made me profoundly unhappy when that was the reason. I don't think I really found my passion until I got into my working life. And I think that's why I pivoted so much. And I think it's okay to not know what you want to do. And I think that's what they expect you to do is know what you want to do. I think it's okay to pivot mid-career and figure out, does this make me happy? No, not at all. So I started in private law. It made me very, very unhappy. And it kind of made my whole life view like flip upside down. I thought I wanted one thing, and that's absolutely not what I wanted. So, yeah, never could I have ever predicted that I would be talking to you in this position right now, working in Olympia. Just nothing. Uh, the one thing I would probably criticize myself about, which I think is related because I think it had to do with like the lack of confidence, is I didn't put myself out there. I didn't sign up for moot court because I thought I would look stupid. I didn't sign up for any of those types of activities. I didn't go to networking events. And I am jealous of the people that I know now that are incredibly successful attorneys and I look up to this day that really created these solid relationships with people when they were in law school. You know, I went to school with Cynthia Delastrinos, who was the head of innovation at AOC, and she really created a relationship with Justice Yu when she was in law school. Um, Alexis Dela Cruz, Diego Rondon, all these people, many of them went through WLI. They created these relationships with these really amazing, strong people that built them up. You know, I wish I would have taken advantage of that when I was younger. I really could have, I really needed it. I really could have done something with it. And I was too scared to put myself out there. And it's not too late. Even if you go through law school and you're not the greatest, you can always get better at it. And I would say I didn't get better at it until I was an attorney and I was working.
That's
Everybody develops
great.
at a
That's
different
great
pace.
insight for I hope you'll be sharing that with as you continue to meet not maybe prospective law students
Yeah.
or ones that are 3 days into law school. I think that's super valuable advice that I don't think I've ever heard before, actually, in my, in many years of
Yeah.
practicing. So write that one down. So for the last question, Sarah, looking ahead, you know that the year is 2025 and you know how the narrative, the narrative,
Hmm.
and the situation for initiatives like WLI, programs that are based in diversity. And I wonder what you hope for WLI looking forward. I was going to ask the question looking 5 years, 10 year, we're at the 20-year anniversary of WLI this year. And I felt reluctant to ask about the next 20 years because right now that seems maybe a little dangerously optimistic, I would say.
Mm,
So feel free to answer about what you wish for WLI in 20 years or just in the immediate or near future.
sure. I think I think it'll still be around. I think it'll still be going strong because the people who are part of it are extraordinary people. People who have a foot in all different areas. That's what I love about WLI. We had immigration attorneys, we had government employees, we had in-house counsel, people who are seeking judicial office. I feel like it reaches out so far. It's creating this really strong net. And I hope that in 20 years, the program continues to engage with the alumni to band together with the attorneys that are in the program and to hold the wall, right? Like to- just to hold it, hold the water from breaking it down, be the dam. Uh, I don't have a lot of optimism either, based on current national landscape, but when you look at the nine people who are on the Supreme Court, who are administering the state's judicial system, and it is the most, or one of, or if not the most diverse benches at the Supreme Court level in the nation. And I don't see our state backing down at all. I think the people that we have chosen to lead us are fighting the good fight. And I think if the alumni continue being involved to hold up this program, to keep the waters from breaking it, uh, I think that it's going to thrive. And yeah, I hope they keep reaching out. I hope they keep visiting the other side of the state. I think there's a lot of important work being done on the east side of the state. I loved going to Spokane and meeting the attorneys and the programs that are being administered over on the other side of the state. I think a lot of Seattle people tend to think that that's all of Washington. It's not. It's a lot of important immigration work, a lot of important work, advocacy work that's being done on the other side of the state. And I hope that they continue involving attorneys from the entire state to make it stronger, to create this stronger net so that we can protect our judicial system and our legal system.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Sarah. Well, that was Sarah Pendleton, Clerk of the Washington Supreme Court and a proud member, as you've heard, of the WLI class of 2022. Her story is a vivid reminder of the power of inclusive leadership, the importance of community, and the long arc of legacy that WLI continues to build. If you're a lawyer in Washington looking to lead with impact, or someone who believes in the power of equity in our profession, we invite you to learn more about the Washington Leadership Institute and consider how you can be part of its future. This has been Voices That Move Us. Thank you for listening.